Hello everyone and welcome back. It's Friday and in a normal world we'd all be going to a restaurant, wouldn't we? Or to a bar or to our local favourite, but we can't at the moment. So instead we are going to talk to a man who has put together one of the best guides for London, UK for 30 years, the Hardens. Peter Harden. So I've invited you, Peter. I can see you're live. You just need to request to join me. I've sent you an invite. So we're really looking forward to talking to Peter because, as we all know, restaurants are really, really suffering at the moment, and our hearts go out to them all because, as I say, on a normal Friday night, we would be going out and enjoying ourselves. So Peter set up Harden's over 30 years ago. He went to Cambridge. If you request to join me, Peter, that would be great. The double little circle with the smiley next to it. It's along the bottom, the third on the right. Let me see. Right. He's joined. I'm going to introduce you properly when Peter's joined us, and we can get together. And it's going to be fascinating because we are all in support of restaurants, chefs, all their staff. It's extraordinary what's going on because they are having such a bad time. Hello, Peter.
Hello, hi.
Very nice to meet you. So this is Peter Harden, who set up 30 years ago the Harden's Restaurant Guide, app and online platform. Very successfully. It's written by the likes of us and curated by yourself. Would that be fair to say, Peter?
That's exactly right. You couldn't have done better. I couldn't have done better myself.
And you set it up because you and your brother, Richard, were working abroad in different cities. And both these two cities, New York and Dusseldorf, had great pocket guides. And you thought, we haven't got this in London. What's going on? This is what we should be doing because London's scene of restaurants were just beginning to open up and get really exciting, weren't they?
It's very hard to remember quite the culinary dark ages that London was in at the time. And about the closest, I mean, it's not like London was without guides. There was the Time Out Eating and Drinking Guide. And there's a tiny little pocket guide called the Nicholson, which you're really dating yourself if you can remember. But in New York, then Zagat was just taking off at the time, which was a handy little pocket-sized guide based on customer feedback. And in Dusseldorf, where my brother worked, then there was a little book called the Marcellinos, again based on customer feedback. And it was really my brother who put two and two together and said, why not London? Why couldn't we do something like this in London?
Amazing, amazing. Well, we're very grateful, I have to say, because I've often used you and enjoyed. So you started off at Cambridge and you were called Hoover Harden?
I was. I mean, I know, given my svelte, appearance now, it's hard to imagine. But no, well, I mean, I was also hard to imagine that I was a bit of an athlete in my youth. But I was, and I used to eat an awful lot to fuel all of that misspent youth on the river.
Yes,
And
you were a keen rower. Is that correct?
I was the secretary of the University Boat Club. Nearly got in the blue boat, not quite tall enough, unfortunately.
Okay.
And yes, and I had a love of food, and was lucky enough to be in New York at the time. As a young man, I managed to go straight from uni to working in New York, and had a lovely time. And as a result of being an overpaid young man, during the end of the 80s great kind of financial bubble, was able to get to know the restaurants of New York in a way that by rights I should really have had to wait a few years to do.
Yeah. No other bank account could have rolled it except for your work, and so you were able to eat at these amazing places.
I was, I didn't have any dependents to pay for, and I had a great time, and at the time, London really, the whole idea of being interested in restaurants, it's hard to remember really how much it wasn't really of a mass niche in the way it is at the moment, and of mass interest. MasterChef started about 6 months before we did, And the whole idea of having a TV program and prime time was really quite an unusual idea.
Yeah.
And in our first year of operation, and that was when Terence Conran launched Quaglinos, and in the same year, Planet Hollywood launched. And and these two events, you know, made restaurant of interest to the mass media, which really previously they weren't. I mean, when we first started selling our book into bookshops, because back in the day, you know, we had to literally get on our bike. We used to walk into bookshops and say, "Hey, we've got this great new restaurant guide," and the book trade, you know, was also in a very different space back then, pre-Amazon.
Yeah.
And the main objection we used to get was, you know, well, restaurant guides are just for posh people with loads of money. You know, they're the only people who are interested in eating out. That was very much the mindset at the time. And so it's amazing how 30 years on, although we're in slightly strange times at the moment, but it's incredible the way that food and restaurant going they truly have become democratized in a way that they really were not when we launched our book.
But also, what I love about your book is that you put it in different categories of price. So it's not all about the best restaurants. It's about every restaurant. And so people can make their choice on location, on price, and on style of food they want to eat. And then they can search.
Well, I'd like to say it is about the best restaurants, but top restaurants don't have to be expensive.
No, they don't.
And what we're really trying to do, as you say, you know, we were a business about user-generated content before that phrase was coined by probably about 15 years. And we used to send out 60,000 hard copy questionnaires every year and have them all entered in a warehouse in Birmingham by people, you know, typing away. And we still get about 150 people still take part writing it out on paper. They just like sitting down with their partner and writing it out over a bottle of wine. And so, yeah, it is. I mean, you know, we are aiming to reflect what real people say and the amount of a smile people have on their face when the dread moment when the bill arrives.
I know. I've read a very endearing story. Your father, you celebrated his birthday, and you came from a bit of a foodie family, but it didn't have to be expensive. It had to be fun. And, you know, your father would always find a restaurant wherever he went. And so he came down to London and he set you and your brother the task of, yes, but the menu has to be under £10. That's the maximum amount we can spend. And so you took him to a pop-up, didn't you?
We took him to, well before the term pop-up was
Yeah.
Yes, we went to, oh gosh, you are now, you're definitely going back. Yes, about 27 years ago, we went to Alunak, which Alunak is still going in Olympia, but it's in this rather nice cafe at the moment. At the time, it was in a porter cabin in the railway, in the kind of car park next to the railway tracks to Olympia, which is also not there now. It's luxury apartments these days. And that porter cabin, yes, it was such a wonderful find in a time where pop-ups weren't really known. Then it was particularly good kebabs, and it was always full with, you know, sort of Iranian princesses dripping with jewels, gorgeous with their sugar daddies, and who had invariably brought along, you know, extremely lovely wines on the table, but the food wasn't costing more than £10 a head, so it got us in on under dad's strict guidelines.
But you see, that's what's quite fun now in London, where in normal times that you can eat amazingly well at such a good price. But are you able to review these pop-ups? Because you don't know if they're going to be there. But somewhere like Carousel, surely you can talk about that, can you?
Yeah, we talk about Carousel, and we talk about anywhere which has got a presence which people can find on a semi-permanent basis. I mean, we rate Ribman on Brick Lane Market and various other street food vendors. And, you know, we always have tried to include good food at any price level. I mean, we had the Brick Lane Bagel Bake-In right from the start, where prices still don't look like they've changed very much since we launched. And yeah, we've always just tried to, I mean, one of the great things about being based on a survey is that if I say it's just where real people talk about, and it's not about where people are going with a corporate expense account to review it, like somewhere like a Michelin, where they've got strict guidelines. we really just try to reflect back in our book the places which people choose to talk. When we say, you know, where's your favorite and where's your best, cheap and cheerful, we have no axe to grind. That's something which we changed actually from the formulas that we kind of took inspiration from. The survey has never been a prompted one. We've never said, what do you think of X, Y or Z restaurant? We've always had an unprompted survey where you say, where did you have your best? What is your favorite? What is your most overpriced? What's your most disappointing? What's your best Indian, say, or and so really it's whatever comes into people's heads.
Yeah, that's amazing. So in London, you have almost 10,000 reviews for your 60,000 restaurants. Have I got my numbers wrong there?
Other way around.
I thought I was looking at you thinking this is wrong. Yeah, so 6,000 restaurants and you've got 10,000 reviews, which is amazing. And
more no, sorry. So every year the deal is that anyone can sign up to take part, and you're invited online. You can fill out any number of places. The average person nowadays rates 5 or 6 places. If you rate more than 5 places, you get free access to our app. If you rate more than 10 places, then you get a free copy of our print guide, which is I like to think is quite an incentive, as it's 16 quid in the shops and we mail it to you for free. And I'm
going to get reviewing.
Well, if only anywhere was open. And yes, so the deal is, you know, if you take part in our survey, the incentive is that you get either free access or a free copy. And we have about 8,000 people who take part in any given year, and between that they will give us about 50,000 reviews.
Yeah.
You know, if you're talking about a top restaurant in the centre of London, then we'll have hundreds of reviews on it, and it gives us a very, very solid statistical basis on which to judge it. If you're talking about somewhere in the boonies of Scotland, or down a winding country road in Wales, then it's a little bit more art than science. It's a little bit more about comparing the reviews with what people said last year, and sticking your finger in the wind a little bit more. But in London, for anywhere which anyone has kind of heard of and which has a media profile, then the computer by and large, or our algorithms, pretty much spits out the rating.
Yeah. Tell me, so was it quite scary when everything went online and people started blogging and all the rest of it? Or has the internet made your business?
The internet has, you know, for any business, it provides opportunities and challenges. I would say we're more in the challenge space, in that we were a local listings guide. And we also, you know, we had 12 other titles at the time, because we were that classic print guide business which tries to add another title and another title. So we had a, you know, top London theatre guide with plans for all the theatres. We had a party venues guide.
Yes.
We had a book about everything you can do, which is free in London. And so what happened, of course, was that rather than being in competition with maybe the London print media like the Standard and Time Out, all of a sudden you have all these huge global businesses who want to have a piece of global search. So, you know, Google, Yelp, TripAdvisor, etc., etc. What has been curious about that whole process has been that although the eyeballs have by and large shifted to our competitors, you know, TripAdvisor is very much bigger than we are, I would like to say that the authority and the credibility has still really stayed with the people who always produced those print guides and reviews. You know, I mean, I never really hear someone say, oh, I went to that place because TripAdvisor said it was, you know, second out of 18,000 restaurants in London, and, you know, it's better than being sort of 42nd out of 18,000 restaurants in London. And they have more big data than you could shake a stick at. So it's curious to me that although from a distribution and promotion point of view, obviously these massive global brands are in a much better place than we are to just get eyeballs on their pages. In terms of the sense of what we publish, I still like to think that our ratings and our reviews give a more accurate assessment than all of this I mean, our data is crowdsourced, but I think we do a much better job of collating it.
I would trust you wholeheartedly with your data. I don't
Oh,
trust the other
bless
people.
you.
I would say that I've had I just don't use them because you read such diverse reviews because you get very different people going there. So it's very confusing, I find. So I never use them at all. I would find other privately owned things where things are more thought through, just to accept from instead of just accepting everyone.
I think the curious thing about user feedback is that it is often contradictory,
Mm.
and that is life. You know, if you have any service really, then people tend to react to it in different ways. And indeed, one of the particular characteristics of a really terrific service is that it's consistent. And I mean, there was one year when we had I don't know how well you know La Trompette, a Michelin-starred restaurant in Chiswick.
Chiswick,
Yes.
yeah. West
So,
London, we're the Cookbook Festival. That's our home.
okay, well, there you go. So, La Trompette, one year we had 250 reviews for them in our survey, of which not a single one was negative.
I would totally agree with that. Totally.
That is a level of consistency which very, very few restaurants achieve, really. Even a very good restaurant will generally have someone say that it's rubbish.
Yeah.
Where what I think we offer, the careful curation that we offer, is by making sense of all of those contradictory views and having that statistical foundation so that you can arrive at a number which is meaningful.
Yes, I said, can I just read this out? A chef Michael Sutherland, can you come to the Grand Hotel Eastbourne and review the Mirabelle, please? There we go. I'm just reading that out for you. You might know it already.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It has featured in our guide, definitely. So in previous years. So thank you very much. But it's not really me. Lovely though it would be. It's not really me who needs to be impressed. You know, it's the people who take part in our survey.
But just tell me this: you do go to some of these places because there's a summary written when you open up your webpage and you go onto it. There is a summary written which is by yourself, or is that by the people and it's then collated by yourself? Because then there's the scores given, and then there's a article given, and you can actually go back through the years and see how the restaurant or the place has changed, hands or changed chef or changed in its style and got better maybe.
Yeah, so thank you very much for having looked at it in so much detail. So there is sometimes a section at the beginning of the page which says Harden says, and that's a part of the page which is filled out if we don't have any survey information to impart. So that if a new restaurant opens mid-year, obviously we haven't had a chance to get any survey feedback about it.
Yeah.
So we will just write something without saying it's particularly good or bad. We will just write something which says, this is what sort of food is served. This is the track record of the people who've done it. And that just gives a bit of an introduction. Below that, there's a section which says survey result. And the survey result is where you're right, that's where the marks are. And that's produced, as I say, by this survey process we go through. And then next to it is a short write-up. Has got longer over the years, can be as long now as about 300 words. And as you say, the previous year's results are also given tabbed above it. And that's where we get, that's where the results of the survey are given. And the way that the write-up works is that there are comments given which are in quotation marks.
Yes.
And those are the comments that quotes real people have made in our survey.
Okay.
So the job really, my job as editor really, I have a bit of help writing it, but I edit all of the final copy myself, which is about 100,000 words a year. It's a lot. and what we're trying to achieve with each of those write-ups is, given the mark which somewhere has achieved from all of the feedback that we get from our crunch, then picking words which match that. So if we had feedback which said you're in the best 10% of restaurants, then we're looking for, you know, angels, quotes which are saying angels dancing on the tip of my tongue and all the rest of it. And if we find that the particular restaurant is in the bottom 10% for any particular category, then we're looking for, you know, colorful ways of indicating that a restaurant is falling short and trying to capture the spirit of why that is. You know, sometimes people just say, you know, sadly they haven't got it, and sometimes people say what a ripoff, and we try to give a very unvarnished account, sort of expressions that quotes real people use when they're talking about a particular place.
Well, you're known for your pithy comments. And so they're balanced. They're not meant to be negative. They're meant to be factual and balanced, so that the restaurant eater, can go to a place and go, yeah, that was a fair review. I agree with that, whether it's positive or negative.
Well, thank you. I mean, again, that's very much the aim. And we always try to write a boring review rather than a colourful review, because sometimes we get the most wonderful, colourful quotes. And but it's not really fair to use them, because to use them would all right, it would be a laugh, but it wouldn't really tell the user what to expect. What we're really always trying to do is to build up people's expectations, so that when they go, they will be happy with what they found. And people always say, or they tend to say, you know, I know if you say a place is good, it really is good, because you're so rude about lots of places which we've been to, which we already think are good. And it's not us being rude. It's just how normal people talk about restaurants when they're not, you know, trying to give some kind of dressed up feedback, but they're just saying how they really think.
Yeah. And tell me, can you cook? Are you a good cook?
I am a very, I can churn it out. I have I have 4 kids. So I can put food on the table in a hurry, but I would be lying if I said that I was an accomplished cook. Definitely not.
Okay, but it's family food. And then if you were to go for a meal, if there was a restaurant open now, do you have a local haunt that you love to go to, or do you have a favorite blowout place, or what's a memorable meal to you that you've had in the last couple of years?
Well, I mean, the place my wife and I return to when we're looking for a big night out is also the restaurant which comes up as being our readers' favourite every year for the last 14 years, which is Chez Bruce down in Wandsworth Common.
Oh, that's very popular. Yeah. Okay.
But given the fact that it's now top of our poll and has been for 14 years, I can't claim great originality in that selection. I work in Shoreditch, and we're blessed with good restaurants in Shoreditch. I mean, I was most impressed by the new Padella, which has just opened there, and the level of value. We talked about how good food doesn't have to be expensive. You know, the level of value which they've been able to deliver, I think is outstanding. And Daffodil Mulligan, which also recently opened quite near our office, I think is an excellent new restaurant. So those are both 2 restaurants I've enjoyed eating at in recent happier times.
Yeah, Padella's amazing. I sometimes work up there, and if you go at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I then don't have to queue because it's so popular, and then just sit at the bar and have a bowl of pasta and whatever their vegetarian is of the day, and it's just a delight, and it's so fresh, as you say.
Yeah.
The whole concept really works. I think restaurants have been very, very clever with this sort of more everyday restaurant, of having very clever concepts. It's all about the provenance of their food. And
Sorry, you froze then ever so slightly, and
yeah,
I got as far as saying restaurants have been very, very clever, and then it cut
very
out.
clever. They've got a very you can get everyday food in a restaurant, and you can have a very nice lunch at an affordable price. Not every day, but and it's about the provenance of the food and the lightness of the touch when cooking it, and the clever magic of ingredients and blending. And we've become such a melting pot in this country that you can get every sort of food, can't you, in London?
Well, the as you say, the level of cooking has transformed in the 30 years that I've been following the London restaurant scene. You know, when one's expectations of going to, say, an Italian restaurant in the early 1990s was extremely low, and any kind of there were one or two places where you could get maybe some lovely steamed fish or some beautifully prepared meal, but in all too often, you know, the Chianti bottles really still were present, and the feelings of throwback to the 1970s were very apparent, and that's changed so much. You know, places like Bocca di Lupo and restaurants like that, which have created these sensational and interesting and regional and affordable experiences, and of course, you know, in Spanish food, places like Sabor and Barafina, you know, these very accessible and absolutely top quality experiences, which were absolutely unknown in former decades.
And I also think that the person eating knows what they want, is more understanding and appreciative of food. So it's a marriage on both ways that's helped the industry as well. Because if you're serving customers who are interested and have a passion, it's exciting for the chef.
Well, you know, I mean, London has transformed in that time. I mean, when we started our book, then London was actually at the trough post-war of its population, something like, I think, 6.8 million. And I think about a year and a half ago, it actually once again overtook its 1939 population, which had been the previous peak. And so many of the people who have come in that time have been immigrants, many from Europe, but, you know, obviously from other bits of the world. Yeah. So London has really filled up with this incredibly cosmopolitan mix of people. How much we can keep this going post-Brexit, I don't know. Perhaps we can even improve on it. But, you know, that incredible influx of Europeans, particularly after the 2008 financial crash from countries like Spain, brought with it so many interesting people with motivation and interesting ideas and a knowledge of their own local food culture, which, you know, really turbocharged London in the last decade.
Yeah, definitely. And what's your advice to restaurants and their staff and everyone at the moment in this present situation? What's your view?
I mean, we all, I think, have to keep positive, don't we? I think probably we all have to dig in for a slightly long haul. Yeah. We launched our business with classic bad timing, into the early 90s recession.
Yeah.
And people talk about the 2008 financial crash, but really that bounced off London. It caused, I'm sure there may be people listening who had a hard time during that time, and I'm not trying to minimize the challenges that people faced in that time, but certainly observing the London restaurant scene at that time, it almost didn't break a sweat because there was so much impetus behind it. There were restaurants which closed, but not in huge numbers, whereas in the early 1990s, then there would be prime sites which would remain dark for years and months, and I hope we're not going back to that, but I think that we will. I just saw this afternoon that Texture apparently is not going to reopen post lockdown, which I think is, you know, that was our #1 restaurant in London 2 surveys ago, and the fact that quality restaurants like that have already said they will not reopen just shows what a changed landscape we will be operating in.
Although some of the restaurants are being incredibly cunning and incredibly clever, and they are turning into a delivery service of either boxes of produce, which is their quality produce, so they can keep their suppliers going, or they are doing prepared meals that either can be cooked at home, finished off at home, or fully blown delivery meals. So I really, really admire those restaurants who are brave enough to do that and still be able to take good food into our homes if we can't go to them.
I mean, the great thing about restaurants is that if you're talking about the kind of animal spirits of capitalism, then restaurants are absolutely at the forefront of that. Restaurateurs are amazing in their positivity and their appetite to create something, which is one of the reasons why I've enjoyed following the business so much. You see so many wonderfully creative ideas, often which come out of nowhere, and especially in recent years, such an amazing, dazzling array of different approaches and different ways of trying to delight customers, and an appreciation of the need to delight customers. So I think that the people behind, there are undoubtedly lions amongst the restaurant community who are determined not to let something as small as a global pandemic slow them down, and the best of luck to them. But I don't think there is any minimizing, unfortunately, the challenge. If the early 90s are any guide, then I don't think that there is any challenge, that there is any minimizing the challenge. And I mean, I've just seen a comment come up on your kind of little
feed.
Delivery is not a restaurant experience, and I mean, I completely agree with that. I mean, I think good luck to all of the restaurants and restaurateurs who are doing that, and to keep their brand alive and to make what money they can. I mean, hats off. But as a customer, the thing which has always drawn me to restaurants is, as a human animal, being made to relax and being well looked after, and having that wonderful kind of alchemy of food and company and good service and a lovely atmosphere. And I just don't, the whole surgical gloves and perspex screen thing is an anathema to that. And I have a lot of sympathy for the view of people like Jeremy King at Corbyn and King saying, social distancing and all these measures, we're just going to wait till they've gone away.
Well, yeah, because, restaurants have to work really, really hard to make a profit. And so if they can only take 50% of their guests because they've got to do this social distancing, it's going to either reflect in the price, or they're just going to run at a loss. So that's quite interesting that someone as big as him, Jeremy King, has just turned around and said he's going to wait till this all stops and then go guns and open up again.
Definitely. I mean, I think I think we can all sense that sentiment is changing all of the time, and I'm very encouraged by the number of people you see in the parks, on the street, how people are up for it. They want to get out. They want to start reliving their lives, and we have to hope the government doesn't put too much. I mean, we don't want to be irresponsible, but at the same time, we probably, there is an argument that we life is about managing risk, and that we need somehow to get back to something more approaching our old normal. And I hope the government doesn't tie the industry in red tape too much, and is able to provide the practical support on rent and the hard financials, which is definitely going to be needed.
I think they should, because actually the restaurant scene here in London is part of people who come travelling. Now, I know that won't happen for a while, but you come to London and you can eat the globe, as we've just said, and the standard of food is so great, be it a cafe to a high-end best restaurant.
Definitely. I mean, I think that's one of the things that we've all been made painfully aware of during lockdown, isn't it? Is that how restaurants and pubs and cafes and other meeting places create the social fabric of a city. They really are what a city is all about. And although, the country kid in me has quite liked living in this kind of West London, being made to feel that it's so spookily quiet, it feels like some huge extended village. The reason that many people live in the city is for that vibrancy and the ability to share in those experiences. And we've all been reminded what a joy and what how much that is a lifestyle to be treasured by this period.
Yeah, and because you're so associated with restaurants, and restaurants are in jeopardy at the moment, what do you personally feel for your business?
Well, it's not without its challenges, shall we say, but I suppose I hope to ape the animal spirits of and the lions of the restaurant industry. And we will soon be, watch this space, we will soon be launching an extension to Harden's, which will take Harden's in a slightly different direction, in the same way that restaurants have added delivery to their model. Then we will be adding we curate reviews at the moment, but we will add the curation of offers into a Harden's Club in the near future, and which I'm very excited to be launching. So we will be launching that. Yeah, you've got a world exclusive there. We'll
Hey, so
we'll
tell
be,
me, you're
we'll
adapting
we'll
your
be
business.
launching that in about 2 to 3 months.
And so that's going to be reviewing delivery services and things like that?
No, well, it will include, I hope, the delivery services, but we're just starting to talk to restaurateurs and chefs about offering them the ability to make offers to our community. We have a mailing list of 40,000 people, and we will be offering a new tier to that membership. So we have our Harden's Club at the moment, and we will be introducing a new tier. We're still struggling with our name. It will be called something like Harden's Gold or Harden's Platinum, and that will allow access to various exclusive deals, which we hope to negotiate with restaurants on our users' behalf, and allow the restaurants to promote themselves.
That's brilliant. And you don't have to pay to belong to Harden's, do you? But will this platinum possibly there be a fee?
You don't have to pay to be a member of Harden's. Anyone can join. Anyone can sign up to take part in the survey. But yes, for the new tier, you will have to pay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But it's going to be a tremendous bargain.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it will. And thanks for sharing that with us. We're really excited. It's always good to get a first on the Cookbook
Absolutely.
Festival Kitchen Conversations.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, we did. We did. So just tell me your favorite food inspired film or book or TV show or restaurant.
Well, I've told you my favorite restaurant.
Yeah.
My favorite book, cookbook, is Claudia Roden's Middle Eastern Cooking, which I think is a tremendous mix of, if you're British, the exotic, but also just really practical ideas, which as a not particularly distinguished cook as I am, you can translate into the plate with good effect.
Yeah, she's a fantastic writer, and her books are just solid and interesting. So that's what you cook at home when you're having a special?
That's what I cook at home when I'm having a special, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And have you ever ventured into the wine world particularly, or not? Because that's a natural marriage with food.
We had a splendid, we have run, although our club, the Harden's Platinum, as its working title will be new, then we have run Harden's events over the recent years called Harden's Invites. We had a splendid wine dinner at Enoteca Turi at the end of last year, which was not a cheap affair, and also won at Mosselman's Club for Chateau Malartic. The one at Enoteca Turi was a 2 vertical tastings of fine Italian wines. And so we have somewhat ventured into fine wines and wine appreciation, and we'll certainly be looking to do a bit more of that through our club. But I suppose I've always been very aware that appreciation of wine and appreciation of restaurant going are very different.
Okay, that's interesting. But you must have eaten at all the best restaurants, and you must have a very fine palate and very quickly know that you like something when you walk in, or you don't like it.
I do, and obviously I have an amazing palate and incredible. But I would say that most people do these days. You know, the time when I think if anyone watching who's old enough to remember the Egon Ronay guide, you know, Egon Ronay inspectors used to be the sort of people who they would go into a Thai restaurant. And in the heyday of Egon Ronay during the 80s, then if you'd been to one Thai restaurant before in your life, then you probably were one up on anyone else who was going to walk in there.
Yeah.
And so you could become an expert. these days, with travel being in happier times so much more accessible, and with your average Sainsbury's having 36,000 lines, including food from all across the world, and with the ability to eat street food from all across the world, then so many people have got fine palates, and that's why our system works. It's because if you ask people who are not trying to impress anyone with their knowledge, but just trying to say, which one do you like better? Do you like that one better or that one better? Then actually most people have got fairly refined palates in being able to distinguish good food from bad. That's very, as I say, that's different from wine connoisseurship, where the ability to express the nuances of wine by being able to access the right language to describe the tastes which you're experiencing and the sensations in your mouth which you're experiencing. That's a very different business. But, you know, tell me when you've ever been to a dinner party and people disagree which is the dud dish and which is the nice dish when the host or hostess is out the room. It never happens. People always agree that that one's the best one, and this one, you know, steer away, it's a bit bland.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But 30 years of eating in restaurants must have been a complete pleasure. I'm sure you've had the odd dodge as well.
I have had lots. I'm not going to make you feel sorry for me. You don't always have a settled stomach in the morning, but no, I don't feel sorry for me.
No, I won't. But listen, I wish you the very, very best of luck with your platinum membership. I'm going to keep an eye out for it because I want all the restaurants to find a way forward. One thing I haven't mentioned is also on your site, you've got a news page, which is quite political, and you are sharing information with people. It's good. It's worth a read. And I would say to anyone, join today. It's a great thing, Harden's.
Fran, we need you running our marketing. This is great. Thank you very much.
No, I love a restaurant. I have to say that. I do love a restaurant. But thank you very much for joining us, Peter. It's been an absolute pleasure and a really interesting insight. And I wish all the restaurateurs and chefs and all their staff, and I hope they get their trunk system worked out in their furlough as well. That would be great. The MPs are rallying, and I read that first on your site as well.
Well, yes, no, amen to that. Amen to the support that the government needs to step forward and give to the trade, because however positive the trade is, it's going to need support over the coming months.
It will. Thank you, Peter. Have a lovely weekend, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.